This is Stern, the business school of NYU, located in the middle of Manhattan and home to nearly 3,000 undergraduates. NYU Stern has two buildings, Tisch Hall and Kauffman Management Center. I don't think I've seen any YouTube videos that show the specifics of what Stern looks like, so hopefully this gives you a good sense of everything. Let's start off with Tisch Hall. Tisch Hall is a red building, and it was built in 1972. Its name is the same as NYU's arts school, also called Tisch, so it's easy to get them mixed up. Upon entering, you'll see a pretty spacious and well-lit lobby with lots of seats where you can sit down, chill, do whatever. I've spent a free period here doing homework before, and it's pretty nice because there are tables and outlets where I can charge my laptop. I would say though that the defining feature of Tisch Hall is the two basement levels downstairs. They are UC, which stands for Upper Concourse, and LC, which stands for Lower Concourse. They look extremely modern and clean because this was Stern's renovation project from 2008 to 2010. There are about 10 to 15 classrooms on each level, so after class ends, it gets very crowded here. That's why there are so many staircases throughout the entire school. Speaking of classrooms, they come in different shapes and sizes. You have small ones, which can hold maybe 10 to 20 students, some others that are slightly larger than that, and the massive ones, which could probably hold over 50 students. When people talk about universities, they tend to picture large lecture halls that can hold hundreds of people at once. That's why I was surprised when I first came to Stern. The classrooms were smaller than I expected. From personal experience, most of my classes have usually been around 20 to 30 people each, so it definitely gives more of a high school classroom vibe rather than a college lecture hall vibe. If you're into that, this will be great for you. For me, I do enjoy the smaller scale because I find it more engaging and easier to focus. In Stern, you will also find lockers in the hallways, just like a high school would. I don't use it, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone else use it either. You can request one if you like, but I don't know the details because I never needed one anyway. Most of us don't carry that much stuff around to begin with. UC is pretty bright because part of it has a glass ceiling that lets in natural light from the outside. You can actually see people walking over the glass panes, but don't worry, it's blurry. There's a little lounge area with spinning chairs and sofas, another place to spend downtime. One thing you'll notice throughout this video is that Stern has a lot of lounges, so you'll have many choices. At UC, you will also find the biggest classroom in Stern called Paulson Auditorium. It can hold up to 470 people, which is insane. I've had a class here before. It was taught by a very famous finance professor, and everyone wanted to take him. The class had 350 students, which apparently isn't unusual, so he always teaches in the auditorium, which not many people do. Low-key flex. Since it's an auditorium, Stern also hosts talks and other big events here. In the corner of the UC level, you will find a 2008 lounge, where you can print stuff and buy snacks from the vending machines. There's actually another lounge nearby, but that one's slightly unique. It's very modern, and only Stern people can enter it. You have to tap your ID, and if you're in a different school, the doors won't open. I only knew of this lounge's existence in junior year because it's so hidden and separate from the rest of the school. Atmosphere-wise, it's great. It's the perfect place to have a meal because there are so many tables, and plus there are more vending machines here. Moreover, if you go up the staircase, you will find a coffee shop in Kauffman Management Center, but we'll visit that a bit later. In short, there's a lot of food nearby. There's also a studio here. Don't know what that is because I can't go in there, so let's just move on to LC. For the most part, LC is pretty much identical to UC. I guess a big difference is that it's darker because it doesn't have the glass pane ceilings, so it feels more low-key in a way. You'll find more workspaces, and there's also computers here if you need them. There's also, you guessed it, another lounge. It's called the EY Lounge, which is pretty quiet most of the times because there aren't that many people usually, and it actually feels like a mini study room. That's it for the basement levels, so we can head on up to the second floor. I swear the second floor is usually much brighter than this, but I guess since it's summer and nobody's really using the classrooms here, they decided to cut down on electricity. There are two classrooms here that look identical, and they're pretty big. I've had 3 different classes here, 2 in sophomore year and 1 in junior year. I guess this place is a good option if there are more than 50 students, because not many classrooms in the UC LC levels can hold that many people. Let's go up to the third floor now, which is a pretty popular destination among Stern students. Why? Well, lounges of course, what else would it be? Except every lounge we've seen and will see in this video pales in comparison to the third floor one. It's because this floor is basically nothing but a huge lounge with so much space. No wonder students love this place. Although I should mention, some people think it's the finance tryhards who are always here, so some students don't like coming up here that much. This is a pretty good place to meet up for projects or group meetings because of the sheer number of sofas and tables that you can use. Or it could be coffee chats. I've given a coffee chat in this lounge before, and it's a pretty good option because the atmosphere is lively and it's not too quiet. If you're not such a big fan of large or noisy areas, you have other options. Next door, there is a silent study room, but people sometimes go sleep there. I guess it makes sense because it's probably one of the quietest areas in the entire school. On the other side of the floor, there's a cluster of small meeting rooms. This area is only for Stern students. Pretty good for group projects. What's better than spending 10 hours of your Saturday in this one place, right? Definitely not talking about a personal experience. Although they're usually empty during the weekends, if you want to come here during school days, you should probably reserve the space online. Other than that, there's a small computer lab, printers, and a microwave, so you'll often find people eating lunch here. That's about it for the third floor, other than the conference room, for which you need an authorized ID to enter, so I can't show it. The fourth floor doesn't have much either. It's just more quiet sitting areas, and the upper floors from 5 to 9 are all offices for different departments of the school. So let's just move on to the other half of Stern, Kaufman Management Center. You can shorten the name to KMC, but we usually just call it KMEC. KMEC is the gray building next to Tisch Hall with the pillars and iconic round rotunda. I think the rotunda is a signature characteristic of the school. It's one of the first things that pop into my mind when I think of Stern. KMEC was built in 1992, 20 years after Tisch Hall. Maybe it's because of Tisch Hall's renovation project that KMEC looks less modern despite being newer, but KMEC definitely seems fancier. It has a completely different vibe from Tisch Hall, relatively more cramped and darker, at least for me. KMEC is technically the graduate building of Stern, while Tisch Hall is the undergrad one, as mentioned on their website. But the thing is, undergrads still have classes here, so it doesn't really matter. One thing I have noticed though, is that all the graduate level classes I've taken so far have always been in KMEC. As soon as I enter the lobby, you'll see something that you're all probably used to by now, another sitting area. The price about this one though, is that there are seats in a little enclosed area, so it feels a bit more private. Nice for Zoom calls, but that's not all. There's a lounge near the entrance called Sosnoff Lounge. It's a much bigger area, and because there's so much space, you'll often find groups doing homework or projects. I've studied for an exam here with other people, but honestly, only because we couldn't find an empty classroom. I would choose empty classrooms over lounges any day. There's also a coffee shop inside the lounge. It might change depending on when you're watching this video, but right now it's a cafe called Motto. It's perfect actually, because you might want some coffee or pastry 5 minutes before class starts, and you can do that without going outside of the school. Stern most likely chose Motto to be their cafe because it's popular among students for its low prices. Motto sells pretty much everything for only $2.50, which is insanely cheap for New York. There's another lobby near the back of KMEC dedicated to 9/11. This is the back door of Stern, and it's a convenient entrance or exit depending on where you're going. For example, if I was heading towards Thompson Street for lunch, I would use this exit instead of the main lobby that we saw earlier. KMEC has 2 sets of elevators. One is the Express, which connects the lobby and floors 6 to 11, and the other stops at every floor between 1 and 6. I'm assuming the Express elevators are used mostly by faculty because floors 6 to 11 are basically where all the department offices are at. The other floors are mostly classrooms. The first floor has few classrooms, most notably KMEC 170. I had statistics class here my very first semester during the pandemic, and I remember everyone having to sit spaced out. I also remember thinking that the mics were a cool addition to the classroom, so that you have to physically press speak if you want to say something. Let's go up to the second floor through this fancy looking glass staircase. You can honestly get a pretty nice view of the lobby from this angle, thanks to the glass balcony. The second floor is still small compared to the other floors, but it does have a very big classroom. This can seat dozens of people, good for club meetings or taking tests. I've taken a finance exam here, and I swear handing out the exams took several minutes alone. KMEC also has these wooden hallway areas, which have more classrooms and have a different vibe from the rest of the building. They have vending machines on some floors, convenient for a quick bite. Mostly though, it's just classrooms and a few office rooms here and there. It's time to go upstairs, which has more stuff to see. There's a nice big lounge here on the 3rd floor. I will say though, that if a Stern student said that he was in the 3rd floor lounge, he's probably referring to the Tisch one, because that one is much more popular. Still, this one's a good place to work too. These little sofa seats are kinda nice. I'd say that the best feature here is probably the individual study spots where you can look outside the window. This place does tend to have a lot of people, so I don't come here that often. There are computers in the hallways, maybe for those who were unable to work on their laptops or didn't bring them. And I'll show you another example of a KMEC classroom. This is a mid-sized one, and I had auditing class here last semester. The wooden hallway has a small sitting area on this floor where some people like to hang out. There's also an electronics vending machine here, which I definitely haven't noticed before recording this video. Some options seem to be overpriced, some not. You can be the judge of that. The 4th floor looks very similar to the 3rd floor. The only noticeable difference is the lounge, which is directly above the 3rd floor one that we just saw. This time, there are only tables and chairs, and there's definitely less people here than the floor below. This is where I used to spend time with my friends after tax class ended and when I was waiting for my next class to start an hour later. The wooden hallway area has something new this time. There happens to be an MBA reading room. I have no idea what this is because it's off limits to us, but apparently it's quite a small reading area. Other than that, there's really nothing outstanding and special about the 4th floor either. It just has more classrooms once again. By the way, there's another connecting passageway to Tisch Hall on the 4th floor, So, as far as I'm aware, Kamek and Tisch Hall are connected on only 3 floors: UC, the first floor, and the 4th floor. There really isn't much to show for the rest of the floors. I guess I can show you the 5th floor commons area, which is used for events, and this trophy display wall. There's also a door that leads to the top of the rotunda, but it's locked for obvious reasons. And the floors from 6 to 11 are all offices for different departments, so there's nothing much going on there either. For many Stern people, most of our lives take place in the lower floors of both buildings. What happens up here doesn't really matter. Then I guess there's only one final thing I can show you: Gold Plaza. This is the area right outside of Stern, where you'll find a lot of benches and tables, just lots of places to sit down, and honestly, it's perfect at night. One time I spent several hours talking with a friend at night while sitting here, and it was so calm and peaceful. Gold Plaza is also good for coffee chats if you need a quick place to sit down and talk with someone. It's also nice for food, because when school's in session, there are a lot of food trucks lined up on the street. Other than that, it's used for school events, photo shoots, filming locations for video projects. You get the points. But I think that's about it for this tour. Hopefully you got a good idea of what Stern looks like in a relatively short amount of time. I think I covered pretty much everything that I could think of. If you're a new student coming to Stern in the fall, I hope this was a good detailed sneak peek of the school, and hopefully you're excited to check it out in person. Thanks for watching this video. Catch you later.